Hi, thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Scott Graham, and I'm joined with my colleague Anahit Tevosyan. Together we lead the research and data science team at FINCA International, which is a global nonprofit organization that fights systemic poverty. Our organization started 40 years ago by providing $50 loans to low-income women so that they could start small businesses. And today our range of solutions has really expanded to include things like access to clean water and energy, and we're reaching about 14 million people around the world today. So for today's chat, we're going to start with a quick reflection on FINCA's mission and how we understand the problem of poverty. And specifically, we're going to talk about the problem of exclusion. Exclusion, of course, does refer to some very tangible things like lack of access to infrastructure and healthcare, et cetera, of course, financial resources. But as researchers, we also understand exclusion as a lack of participation in data and research. And we're going to talk a bit about that, as well as how the traditional tools of research are not really adequate to the task of bringing poor people into the information economy. And then we're going to turn to a solution that we're developing that uses AI and various AWS services to really accelerate the path to knowledge so that we can create a more inclusive view of the world and serve our clients even more effectively. And we'll do that in a fairly functional description. We're not going to get into too many technical details, but if time allows at the end, we will peel back, we will pop up the hood and go a little bit deeper. So, whenever I'm trying to explain to people what it is that FINCA does, I always start with the basic insight that drives everything we do, which is that the masses of poor people at the base of the socioeconomic pyramid are not there because they lack the drive or the initiative or the creativity. They're not there because they are unwilling or unable to work, but because the human drive to prosper and set your children up for a better future is universal. But it doesn't matter how hard you work if you don't have some basic resources to work with. And that's why FINCA started 40 years ago, giving very tiny loans to women so that they could start small businesses and things like daycare and dressmaking, so that they would have access to the opportunities that would unleash their own potential and their own power to create wealth. And so we started this business of giving small loans, and it came to be, eventually flourished into an industry that's now called microfinance. Some of you might have heard of it at this point. And the success of that model has really bred a whole new crop of social enterprises that are trying to attack the problem of poverty and opportunity in a very similar way. That is, treating poor people not necessarily as people that need a handout, but as people that need access to the same kinds of resources and opportunities that we have. And right now there is just an enormous, and this realm of social enterprise is an absolutely burgeoning field of creativity and innovation, where very dedicated and smart people are trying to solve very basic needs for people at the base of the pyramid. And FINCA works with these organizations. We provide them with funding and technical assistance so that they can grow. So some of the companies we work with, for example, are providing better access to clean water, or they might be distributing solar lighting. Some of them are working to make healthcare more accessible, and there's a whole bunch of activity around the theme of small-scale farming and how to help small-scale farmers really prosper in spite of the many challenges they face. So, for example, one of the companies that we work with, Ignitia, that's their client on the far left there, they provide very highly accurate micro-weather forecasting to small-scale farmers in Ghana so that they can know, for example, when to apply fertilizer to their crops. With that knowledge, they're able to conserve their resources, apply that fertilizer at the opportune time, and it's actually increased the yields of those farmers by as much as 80%. So these are all interventions that are building off of the same concept of microfinance, but now branching off to new areas. And so with that, let me hand off to Anahit, and she's going to talk about how data and research are supporting this work.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Scott. So moving ahead, at FINCA, we do believe in the power of data. And leveraging the power of data is an absolute necessity in our work, in our fight against poverty. And so our commitment to better data and research is not professional or something else. It's our pledge to assemble a repository of insights and solutions that can also foster collaboration among people who share our mission, to come and to use our data. Because we believe that every single piece of data that we have is precious. And this is because we work with and gather data from the most overlooked corners of the world, from excluded population, and on poverty solutions that cannot be found elsewhere. So because our data embodies the needs of these people, of those excluded communities, and in the powerful solutions that can address those needs, we believe that our data has the capacity to break the chains holding these excluded communities captive to the circumstances beyond their control. But of course, in all this, we have some challenges, and I want to invite Scott to talk about those challenges.
Yeah. So data, in order to be useful, we need to situate it in an informational environment where we can interpret it and use it for decision making. And so even though we may be thinking of data at a very micro level, we also need to be able to zoom out and kind of see a bigger picture. And this is especially true when you're trying to discover new themes and topics related to poverty alleviation. And the way that researchers typically go about this has not changed much, well, maybe since the invention of the internet, of course. The internet changed things, but it has not really taken advantage of the advances in computing and automation and data storage. So the way that researchers map out new topics is still very old school, very analog. And the way that we approach a new subject, starts with desk research. And that desk research, involves somebody going online, Googling topics, compiling documents, reading them, highlighting them, tagging them, sharing them. It's very, very old school. And the problem with this is that it is very, very time consuming, very labor intensive. It is just not up to the task that we have set for ourselves of ending poverty in our generation. If we want to do that, we have to move much faster. And so we need to use the tools of computing and automation to do that. Our human brains are slow. We need to sleep. We need to rest. Our attention can only be held for so long. And these are limitations that we can now overcome if we take advantage of technology. And so we are proposing, or we're working on a solution which we call Aura, which is an automated research assistant. And the idea behind Aura is that we are going to automate the process of discovery. So when we're starting a new project, when we're conceiving a new research project that will inform our decision making about what kinds of solutions we want to invest in, instead of using the old manual process, we want to have an automated research assistant that will be able to quickly and without all of the limitations that we have, find, assemble, and analyze the information so that we can understand a topic and then when we need to collect new data, we know what the gaps are in evidence that we're trying to fill.
So the entire design of Aura is to make sure that it is repeatedly trained around emerging party solutions, and specifically on the needs of excluded communities, taking advantage of the fact that FINCA programs reach directly to those communities. So the data ingestion phase is the first phase in the functional design, and it is designed to make sure that we allow curation of data libraries. These enhancements and curations of the data libraries that Aura is going to be trained on is extremely important in our work, because in the frontier of innovation, the information is not always available on the web. So it rather comes from rapid program evaluation data, or expert opinions, or investment memos, infographics, maps, graphs. So then the knowledge extraction engine of Aura is designed in a way so that it can handle all these data types. So it processes them, it summarizes them, and then it provides topics and subtopics. Also, the associations between those and the relationships, so that it is easier for the researchers to understand impact pathways and then construct theories of change. And so then these relationships and associations are being visualized in the next stage, the knowledge representation stage. And here we use knowledge graphs as well as Q&A system, question and answer system, to make sure that it is easier for the researchers to just depict all those visually, see all those associations and relationships. Then the last part of Aura, the knowledge retention, which is the most important part of Aura, is making sure that the entire knowledge so far, the entire interaction between the domain experts to AI and from AI to the domain experts is being gathered and then is being retained and used again. So this transmission of the knowledge between the domain experts to AI and then from the AI to back to the domain experts is what we think the success factor of Aura. And we also think that the knowledge that we retain, those curated data libraries and also the impact pathways and the theory of change can be also interest to many other researchers working on the field. So as you can see, the entire system is built on the cumulative learning and collaboration principles between the domain experts and AI to make sure that the researchers have the space, have the best environment to interact as they do their research. Sorry, I'm going to skip this one, and I'm going to really very quickly go through the way I think we think this is an innovative use of those AWS services in research, but we might be already.
I think we're okay.
Yeah. So in the knowledge extraction phase, Aura uses Amazon Bedrock to build those topics and subtopics, and then help the researchers to do better search, more informed search. And then also, Bedrock allows us to do targeted content retrieval, which really helps our researchers to get more deep domain understanding. The next usage of AWS services is Amazon Neptune. In the knowledge representation stage, we use Amazon Neptune to visualize all these relationships between the topics and subtopics so that it is easier for the researchers to come up with theories of change. And then lastly, we use the combination of Amazon Bedrock and OpenSearch in the Q&A environment to help researchers to do better, to get better answers from their questions. And this really allows us for retrieval augmented generation so that the retrieved content from the open search can be then enhanced by the Amazon Bedrock foundational models. So basically, the entire system really is built to allow or to have this environment when the researchers can interact with AI, making sure highly accurate results.
Great, thank you. So I think we have time for some Q&A. I should just maybe preface that by pointing out that we're still in the prototyping, so this is not a thing yet. I mean, it looks great as a slide. We have managed to kind of coax this into existence. I wouldn't yet call it a prototype, but we're close. You should know that before you formulate any questions. But this is the idea that we're pursuing. So in the data ingestion phase, this is where the researcher can really specify, we can direct it towards specific sources that we already know and trust, and that we know are on topic and that are representing that population. So and then that can be augmented by what the search engine finds on its own. But we can start by giving it that initial upload, and we can also upload our own data, which then kind of centers the search from there forward. Yeah.
All right, let's thank our presenters. I think there's a last slide, probably with a little feedback thing.
And we appreciate any suggestions as well.
Yeah, our booth, FINCA, is just right behind this stage. So if any of you have suggestions or ideas or potential collaborations or questions, we would love to see you there. We'll be there all afternoon, and this is where you can reach us.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
Thank you.